G'day community and welcome to the Jock Reynolds podcast. I'm here with Patch for our first episode of Pocket Profiles. We're going to be bringing you 18 episodes, one for each club of these mini pods, breaking down some of the top line stuff you need to know. Patch, shout out to Telebeats for the intro, shout out to you for being here, and shout out to Supercoach for opening tonight. If you're listening to this on the day of launch, Supercoach launches tonight. It'll be available to you people listening from the 28th of January. Folks, it's exciting. It's time to build your teams. Although, Patch, everyone's probably already built their team on our website.
I mean, yes, we did have that wonderful team pick-up come out, which was super duper exciting. But you get to see it on the screen with all of your favourite captaincy buttons and your swapping things. I'm excited. I don't sound like it, but my God, I'm excited. I'm just slowly processing. It's been an off season. It's time to wind the gears up and really get cracking on it. How are you, my good friend?
I'm fantastic, Patch. It's like the second of 3 Christmases we get for Supercoach. You get Team Picker dropping, then you get live Supercoach dropping, and then you get round 1. Patch, I think we need to push on. We're looking at Collingwood for the first episode.
We are.
Exciting stuff. A lot to talk about here. And Patch, we're going to start with our locks from Collingwood, and I'm interested to hear who you've got in this category.
Yes, well, we're going to go through, just very quick, we'll go through 7 different categories for each team, punch them out because they're pocket profiles. If you can't fit it in your pocket, then you got to get new pants, which have like bigger pockets, like another leg.
We're already getting delayed.
Tangent. I'm getting the tangent out of the way early, okay? The lock is... I suppose it could well be one of your locks because you mentioned him on our podcast a week or so ago. Taylor Adams in the midfield would be...
He bloody lock.
He bloody lock in the sage words of Crouching One. Good at football. Has to stand up in that midfield. Finished the season on fire. Good footballer.
Yeah. Thanks to a lot of these stats, by the way, jump on the website. Barron's put up a breakdown of everyone's average throughout the year. He broke it up into 3 little segments: rounds 1 to 6, 7 to 12, 13 to 18, and then a little bonus treat for you, finals. And this man, as we discussed last week, go back and listen to that pod, stood up in finals, averaged 114 over the games that he played. Averaged 109.6 for the regular Supercoach season. He's just about a lock. And thanks to some fantastic information provided from Azza, we know that he's attended 76% of centre bounces in 2020. He was the second highest player in that Collingwood midfield outside of Brodie Grundy, and that's not going to change this year. He's just about as locked away as you can be.
Yep. Do you have another lock in Collingwood?
Yeah, well... do we need to spend much time on the man Brodie Grundy at all? Do we need to talk about him?
I feel like we will have that discussion about whether or not you pick him ahead of Gawn, with Gawn. That's a separate discussion. Looking at Brodie Grundy as a player, you lock him in. He's good at football.
He's very clearly the lock from the ruck line. For the forward line, we've got steel side bottom Patch. I don't think anyone's going to be disagreeing with us on this. Mid forward, $588,000. He's going to be probably the number 2 selected forward this year. Only played 9 games in 2020, averaged 109.5. Had a big 117 when he returned late in that season, Patch, before he wasn't allowed to play again. Yep. He barely spent any time at centre bounces. That's probably going to continue in 2021. He's going to be a forward line player that goes up the wing and can get into the guts as well. Is there anything we don't like about him?
I feel like he's the sort of player that will dip in price. Like forwards traditionally dip in price. They'll dip around. Some will like bottom out severely very quickly. I know a lot of people have thought that about Dustin Martin the last couple of years. He will dip in price. I'm not sure he comes out the gate and averages the 112, 113. He'll need to maintain that price, but you're picking him as a keeper. that would be my only real question mark on him. There's no doubt you'll get at least 100 points a game out of Steel Side Bottom.
Agree. The worry with a lot of these forward lines and a lot of these high, close to 600k players is going to be maintaining that price. But I think in the forward line, looking at it already, he's going to be a top 6 forward for us, barring injury, and you may as well lock it away at the start of the season.
Yep, agreed.
Finally, in defense, we'll do the lock of this position. For me, it's very tight between Brayden Maynard and Jack Crisp, and I think I'm gonna give Jack Crisp the nod.
Controversial, considering he averaged a bit more and has severely burnt you in the past.
Yeah, he has burnt the hell out of me before, but you know what you're going to get from him. You're going to get about 100 points. Brayden Maynard did a fantastic job in 2020 patch, but he hasn't done that fantastic job as consistently or as long as Jack Crisp. Crisp was also bloody reliable, doesn't miss games, and at 16 less K, maybe that cash helps me out somewhere else.
Perhaps, although I've got Maynard at 459, which is probably incorrect, sitting there on that little dot.
No, he's at 559. That is a typo.
That is a typographical error. Let he who has not made a typographical error cast the first stone. Now let me go get my rock. We're moving, speaking of, rocks, knocks, it rhymes. We'll move on to our knocks, and we're pretty unanimous here. Don't need to spend too much time on it. Who is our knock from the Collingwood Football Club?
Yeah, our knock is definitely Jordan De Goey for a million reasons, but let's talk purely Supercoach. People are pretty confident that he's going to spend
more midfield time.
More
midfield time. Personal best on the time track, training with the midfield group.
But guess what? They need people to kick goals. They've got rid of a couple of players who could kick goals in the off-season, and I think he's going to be firmly entrenched in this forward line. And to be honest, Patch, he's not that impressive in the midfield from a Supercoach point of view anyway.
No. Agreed.
He had one score in 2020 above 100, which was a 151, which is huge and awesome. But guess what? He kicked 5 goals in that game, and that's what they want him to do. He's playing the forward line. Jamie Elliott's the forward that's going to go into the midfield, and he doesn't score well either.
Agreed. Who is your bolter from Collingwood?
Yeah, so I like this one. My bolter is, I don't know if you call him a bolter or a breakout, Patch. I guess we can debate the merits of that, but it's John Noble for me, mate.
Ooh.
I'm big on this kid. I think there's opportunities for guys like Crisp and Maynard to push up the ground, and I think John Noble can step into a bigger role again this year. 393k. I'm not going to be starting him. Averaged 73 across the year, and admittedly had a pretty shit finals. But I think they want the ball in his hand, and I think we're going to see more and more use from his kicking coming outside of defence.
Don't mind it. One to monitor in the preseason as a bolter. Now, I'm going to ask you to not look at this page of stats we've got in front of us as I tell you about the player I've got as a bolter. Averaged 110 for the year, finished the year like a house on fire with 121 average in 5 games, has a history of scoring well. Scott Pendlebury had a poor 2020 from a poor 2019. He was kind of out of form, out of sorts, had a patch through the middle of the year where he wasn't scoring that well, only scored average 71 in the finals, but there have been a few departures from that Collingwood side. They need some leadership because they've got a lot of young players they'll be blooding this year. I'm not saying I'm going to pick him, but Scott Pendlebury intrigues me.
It's an interesting one. I almost had him as my knock because I think he's definitely overpriced, $5.92. My thing about Pendlebury is he's so good in so many positions that maybe they start to rely less on him in the midfield and maybe put him behind the ball a bit more, which we saw at times in 2020. And maybe even when they're desperate for some forward line attack, maybe they push him up the ground a bit more. Like if I was coaching Collingwood, and I know Scott Pendlebury is fantastic and he's awesome, but I'd be giving that midfield time to guys who I believe are the future. We talked about Elliott. They've talked about De Goey. I don't see that one happening. We know that Dacos and he's more of a forward player, but you know what I'm saying. I'm giving that time to the future.
Yeah, and that's the smart way to play it. Is Nathan Buckley a smart man? It's an endless debate in the football world. We'll find out. He's one I'm very intrigued by, and that end to the season, those final 5 games, averaging 121, says that maybe there's still sparks, maybe it's still a spark rather in the old dog. That's also not the phrase. Let's move on. There's life in the old dog yet.
Let's move on to our rookie selections. Do any of the rookies they picked out look good? I mean, they did what they said they were trying to do. They got back into the draft and they got some players, and all it cost them was 3 quite talented footballers and arguably one of their best players, and them to pay another club $1 million for him to play there. And they did pick up some rookies.
And draft picks for next year.
But we don't talk about that.
And their dignity and any sort of self-respect they had in in that sort of footballing world. The derision, like there are memes about them on Twitter, which you don't come back from memes about you on Twitter. And I can say that as an Essendon supporter who has dealt with so many memes about us not winning finals. Do you want me to go on?
I think we can move on. Let's mention some of those rookies they picked up. Henry Oliver, Finlay McRae, Tom Wilson, Liam McMahon, Reef McInnes, Caleb Poulter, Isaac Chug, and Jack Ginnivan. A lot of those players had pretty high raps. It's just a matter of who we think is going to get to that side, and what do we think? Do we think Collingwood's playing rookies, or do we think they're trying to hold on to a finals position?
I'm not sure. I think, surely you'd think they'd start seeing the writing on the wall, that, they're the very good players. I don't know. I don't know. Because it's not even really an aging list. You take Penderbury out of it, and there are a lot of players kind of in their prime. But I don't know, Reef McInnes has massive raps on him. Didn't get a huge chance in the midfield with the Chargers because he was stuck behind, some players like Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson and Will Phillips and all these spuds that just wouldn't get out of his way. But yeah, no, I reckon they'll, at least 2 of them should get game time, and I would say McInnes and McRae would be the 2 there. I'm keeping a really close eye on Trent Bianco as well. Was hit by injury last year and didn't have the chance to play in the VFL. Don't think he's there round 1, but I think midway through the year we could see him emerge playing off halfback on a wing as it's kind of an outside midfielder. He's one I'm keeping a close eye on as well.
Yeah, super highly touted by Fantasy Freako, and Champion Data in his draft year had some really nice numbers next to his name. Just whether he can put it together on an AFL field for us. But I like it, Patch. I like it. The next thing we got to look at, do you have anyone who's going to break out? Which I guess the bolt of the breakout, I kind of said my one, John Noble. Do you have someone who you think is going to break out?
Well, the person who I think will, most likely to break out is kind of in John Noble's role and in the role that would potentially keep Bianco out of that team, in that it's Isaac Quaynor, assuming he doesn't have his shin spliced in half again this year.
I still have nightmares about that.
It was kind of horrific, that one. But, up and running, back to normal, and looks like a supremely talented player. Jury's still out on his, scoring capability, whether or not he's, will develop into a full primo, or if he becomes kind of an Adam Assad-esque, brilliant footballer, but not necessarily as fantasy relevant as your Jake Lloyds and these other defenders that just kind of run off halfback and collect the ball at will. One to monitor. Could break out, not saying he will, but he'd be my pick out of that side to break out, considering Collingwood from a Supercoach perspective are pretty heavily gunners and rookies.
Yeah, I've probably got mine mixed up, but I guess Josh Dacos, the guy I mentioned before, 442k, averaged 82 for the year, but last 5 games, averaged 91 of the regular season, struggled like a lot of the Collingwood players did in a Supercoach sense in the finals. He's probably someone... I've probably mixed them up here, but he's probably someone I'm watching as someone who plays on the wing and can go forward and impact in the scoreboard. And, well, in theory, could play anywhere. So he's one I'm watching. But I love the Quaynor pick, and I think him and Noble are really vying for that same sort of spot. I think they can both be in the side, but I think the role they're vying for the same role, that one of those key distributors when when crisp and that move up the ground. So
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful little pick.
Yeah, I'm not rushing to pick either of those guys, but I think one of them will potentially go there. They could potentially be a trap, but who's someone you know will be a trap this year, Lek Dog?
It's sort of hard, like you said. It's guns and rookies, isn't it? I mean, you could just as easily say, like we said, he's a lock. Brodie Grundy could be a trap as well. 650k is a lot of your starting cash. A guy that, even though he averaged 121 last year, not struggled, but dipped off towards the end of the season. He still produced some magnificent scores, and we got to ask ourselves: is he a trap? Is he someone we can pick up cheaper, or is he, as year one ticks over for this 7-year contract, is he going to pull his finger out and deliver us, more than 121, as greedy as that sounds?
Such a selfish player, Brodie Grundy. Just does not give us the points we thoroughly deserve. Remains to be seen. I'm not too sure. I've seen a few mutterings about the guy I think will be a trap. Mid-only, don't think too many people will go for him in the end, but in the release of Supercoach or Supercoach opening, the madness that comes with that, I reckon people will start picking Brayden Sear, and those people should absolutely not, under any circumstances, select Brayden Sear at 300k in the midfield.
You can kind of see the logic. He got picked up. It was kind of a surprise pickup back when the Pies did pick him up. Fans have wanted him to play as that big-bodied mid for years. Hasn't been able to get in. Adam Treloar leaves. Maybe he can come in. He has performed at senior level at times, and I can see, but I just don't see the void of significance being big enough that he jumps in and elevates himself, particularly in a sense of starting him. I think, hey, if he takes up that role in the one preseason game we're going to see, and in the early couple of rounds he starts pumping out big scores, maybe we jump on. But I agree, I think he's a dangerous player to start.
Yeah, if you're in draft leagues though, could be one to snare very late to sit in your bench.
Oh yeah, you'd be happy picking him up later in a draft for sure. I think.
Have to wait and see on that one for regular classic Supercoach pass. Who are you passing on?
I'm passing on Brayden Maynard. I think I touched on him before. He's close. He's too much of a question mark between him and Crisp as to who's the lock. Maybe they both are. Maybe neither one of them are. Maynard obviously had an awesome season. Averaged 102 for the year, but had in the first 6 games averaged 110. In the last 6 games averaged 105. But I'm avoiding him. Didn't like his finals output, and I think the guys that jump up one year and elevate themselves, but I just want to see it locked in. I want to see it solidified.
Yep, agreed. I don't hate that at all. And, I've got another Collingwood defender I'm looking to pass on in Jeremy Howe. Was brilliant to start the season, averaged 120, in the 4 games before doing his ACL, which, awful for football because he's just such an exciting player to watch. Just the combination of, coming back from a long-term injury. It's the first really serious long-term injury he's had, to my knowledge, off the top of my head, as someone who doesn't know many things about anything. But yeah, I want to see him come back from that. And then also he's a premium in the backline. We've got premiums in the backline coming out of the wazoo this year. I'm going to pick one of them. And if Howe proves that he's going to average 120, 105, 110, whatever it is, I'll look to pick him up a bit later down the line.
Yeah, he's 30, going to be, close, 31 during the middle of the season, coming back from that injury. And I agree that the backline is not a place where we need to take risks in 2021. It's full of talent. You can find it cheap. You can find it expensive. You don't need to take risks back there. The midfield and the forward line are probably the places and the ruck are where we're going to take a risk or two. And defense, I think you can just lock it away.
Yep, agreed. And that's it. That is Collingwood. That is the Pocket Podcast. We've managed to keep it well under our, into our time frame of 50 hours. It's longer than 15 minutes already.
It's longer than 15 minutes. Community, if you're listening, make sure you like and subscribe and give us a rating on whatever platform you're listening to. If you're on the website, make sure you share the links around. We're going to be doing this for 18 different teams, so don't unsubscribe if you're getting spam. Just endure with us, and hopefully you can enjoy the season of Supercoach as it approaches us. Patch, it's been a pleasure.
It has been an absolute pleasure. I will speak to you on the Port Adelaide podcast, but that might be the only one we do together on our own, because we're going to share the love round. We're going to get the rest of the Inner Sanctum on the microphones. They're all going to be jumping in and doing a whole assortment of different clubs, which I'm really excited for. I'm really excited to listen to the rest of them sort of take the
Saves
reins.
us having to do it as well.
That too. Community, you're the best. Happy super coaching because it's back open. It's a thing. Get to it.